Again, we are going to have a class in session today. And the reason why we're having class in session as opposed to history and politics is because I'm not taking an issue in American history and giving it a historic framework to build an understanding from the past to the present so we can have a clarification in the point of the politics and political activity today. Today, I'm explaining something in a historical context, which is the point of class in session. Um, I have been getting a lot of communication from followers that seems to miss the point of the channel. Okay? And the point of the channel is for historic information to contextualize current conversation. Let me move this. All right. So everything that I'm saying should be backed by historic information. And the question or the assertion that's made is that I focus too much on race. And that may or may not be, because that's kind of a matter of taste. Now, my question is one, what is too much? That's, one thing. And is anything that I'm saying not related to the point that I'm making? If in the historic context race is involved, I have to address it. Now, there are some things that are indicative to my personality as to where I'm blunt. If I'm talking about white people, I'm going to say white people. If I'm talking about Asian people, I'm going to say Asian people. If I'm talking about black people, I'm going to say black people. So I give a direct approach in the desire to elevate clarity and specificity. So to talk about race does not make you a racist. It's number one. And again, even the word racist, I've talked about in different videos. Being a racist, wanting your race to be first, or enjoying your race before any other, there is no intrinsic harm in that. I don't think that that is in any way conveyed with any ill intent on this channel. Even if I did feel my race is my priority, which it is, that in and of itself is not and should not be offensive. Discrimination, the extent to which you will exercise power to ensure that, is the historic problem that we have in this country, not a race first issue. Just like I intrinsically agree with the America first ideology of MAGA. I do think we should think about Americans first, and then our charity goes from there. I think we should be taking care of the homeless in America before we are doing that abroad. I think we should be educating Americans before we're educating people abroad. I think we should be doing goodwill at home before we begin worrying about doing goodwill abroad. I don't find anything, and that doesn't mean that you are a nationalist, but if it does, that makes sense. So the problem should not be, is the ideology of this historian racist? Does he discriminate as opposed to incriminate? Is what I'm saying, number one, apropos, number two, true? Now, this issue kind of harkens back to the statement of MAGA's realignment of American education, or desire to, because it makes certain people feel bad. Aligning with that thought, we're going to have a bunch of conversation that makes people feel good, but what everybody knows, because that's what our primary American education is when it comes to world history. This channel is focused on what we don't know. Now, my challenge to the viewers of this channel is to do your research. And if you would disagree with me, disprove what I'm saying. Or look up what I'm saying and process the information differently and challenge my interpretation. But too many times, racism is low-hanging fruit, especially in this country. Oh, you're racist. That's why you said X, Y, and Z. Oh, I disagree with you. You must be racist. That's why X, Y, and Z. As opposed to, I disagree. Why do I not have the information to articulate an opposing argument? We learn in uncomfortable places. That's where the learning process takes place. If I ask you to go to a store that's across the street from your house that you've been going to since you were a kid, you're going to go to that store and possibly not remember it because there's nothing to make you focus in on it. You're using reflexive muscles and memory to do most of what it is that you have to do. The only thing that may make you remember that action is if something strange happened, but not the trip itself. But if I asked you to drive to a state that you've never been to, on a highway you've never traveled, even if you're a confident traveler, your senses are up, you're watching, you're trying to get landmarks, you're looking at your GPS, you are worried about what kind of neighborhoods I'm going through, you're worried about, am I going to miss a street sign? You are uncomfortable because you are outside of your realm of comfort, as you would be going to the store where you wouldn't think about it. You generally learn more how to use the GPS, how to look for landmarks and signs, and you're going to watch your speed. You're going to function different in that higher pressure situation where you're uncomfortable. You're going to be paying attention to more things. Education is no different. So on this channel, we purposefully go to those uncomfortable places because that is where we learn, and that's our goal and objective. So we stay in these uncomfortable modes. Okay. Now, what we have to really embrace is uncomfortable does not require disagreeable. let's have a historic conversation and at least broaden our understanding. I am not trying to make the viewers of this channel think like me, but I am trying to get them to think. So, rarely will you hear me say someone is racist. A particular person is racist. I will talk about people who discriminate. I will talk about people who use power to hurt others. But what I really want people to understand is systems in our country and the duality of these systems. What I want people to understand is that many of the systems that are meant to hurt one group affect many groups. And I think in this particular administration, that is really evident because you're getting to see people who have voted for a system of thought, 2025, Project 2025, and have voted to their own demise, where they've either lost jobs or gotten their community deported or gotten budgets cut that have hurt them or people close to them because this group was saying things about race, but the same racial ideology, race, is a political construct to reserve access to resources. Well, that construct also helps keep people outside of that race away from resources. So it's two sides of the same coin. The same thing that keeps black people disenfranchised keeps poor white people poor. And that's why these things are not taught in school. But when poor whites hear it, it's like the fingers in the ears. It's black, what did the person say? Black, basically they're tired of hearing black people talk about how hard black people have it. I forgot what term that they use. But that is the ideology that they're taking, which is making them vote for these systems that ultimately keep them poor. And these are the things that we're trying to point out. This is what CRT is, critical race theory. This is what the Lyndon B. Johnson's Kerner report was reporting about. This is what diversity, equity, and inclusion is about. And think about it. There is a reason why MAGA uses the acronym DEI, but not the words diversity, equity, inclusion. If you ask most Americans if they have a problem with diversity, with equity, or inclusion, they're going to say no. Even MAGA people. But if you ask them about DEI, oh, it's offensive, it's racist, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. And there is no proof since affirmative action or diversity, equity, and inclusion have been installed that there's been an elevation in black wealth. The people who benefited significantly from affirmative action is white women. The people who are going to benefit from diversity, equity, inclusion is white women. So all of the white women that's in MAGA, that's in all these organizations that don't want diversity, they're voting against their own benefit. Black people are 13% of the population. Those things are put in place not just for those few people. 60% of white people have no relate in this country. This is a poll. 60% of white people have no black friends. They have no interaction with black people. Now that's not now a small mind would say, oh, that's racist. That's because they're racist. No, it's not enough black people in this country that if you live in Montana, Washington, certain parts of Nevada, the Dakotas, you're not gonna see no black folks. Wyoming, you're not gonna see no black folks. Ain't no black folks there. You can live your entire life there and not run into a black person because it's just so few black people in this country. So those laws are not being made for those very few people. They're being made to keep these masses poor. But this triggering reaction of this zero-sum attitude and ideology that if this person gets something, that means I can't have anything. This greed that this group doesn't deserve it. And it's not just black folks, it's Latinos, it's Native Americans, and to an extent, men. So that's what this channel is. Race is too easy. Race is the layup. And race is not the problem. Discrimination is. There's nothing wrong with wanting your race or your group to be first, just like America first. There is nothing wrong with that. What you're willing to do for your race or your nation to be first. If we were going around the world starting wars and hurting people, we were committing genocide for America to be first. That's the problem. Not the fact that I wanted to be first. So a racist, not a problem. A discriminator. And you have to have power to withhold power. That is where the problem is. So if there is nothing on this channel that is withholding power, why are we worried about discrimination? Because really, when people say racist, that's really what they're talking about. Oh, and let me change that, because to a lot of white people, racism means I don't like you. That's what has been engineered into the white mind. I don't like you. That's what racism is. No. Black folks don't give a hoot if white people like them or not. What black folks care about are the laws that are put in place and have been in place since the beginning of the country that have caused a wealth gap that to this day have disallowed the wealth gap to close. They say, well, what laws are in place now where black people can't, where they can't do certain things? Our practices and policies are different. We're policed differently. We are employed differently. We are housed differently. We're educated differently. We're treated differently in the legal system. Those are practices and policies that play out for the same outcome. And as an equal participant, we can't equal the playing field once you spent 250 years with laws that you cannot argue have been in place for you to gain this gap. So that is the argument. Let's close the gap. Now let's say we're on an equal playing field. I can't get 50 yards ahead of you in a foot race and then say, okay, now hit the gun, let's go. You're 50 yards ahead of me. And you cheated to get that 50 yards ahead. You committed genocide to get that 50 yards ahead. You stole by way of war, Mexico, to get that 50 yards ahead. You enslaved and took labor without pay to get that 50 yards ahead. And once you stole, once you murdered, then you put laws in place to protect it. And after your genocide claimed to be the original and rightful owner of that land, that is an entirely different conversation than, well, right now, you should have the same opportunities because the laws have been changed within the last 30 years. This country is almost 300 years old. How much sense does that make? But let's remember, racism is a low-hanging fruit. Disprove facts. The racist claim is for people without information, most of the time. Now, if it's people who know what racism is, and if it is racist, go. But if you're on an academic channel and you hear something about race, that doesn't make it racist. And racist in and of itself is not a problem. Discrimination and withholding access to wealth and policies and practices that keep people from advancing is what the problem is. Let's talk about that.